Well, it's Saturday. Checking the levels here. Test, test. I think we're doing okay. It is Saturday. Yesterday, the past couple of weeks, past 3 weeks have just been, there's been stuff going on. Nothing major. It's just been stupid and more involved and complex than it should have been. I've been out of my rhythm, and things have just been weird. And yesterday was I had to be in charge of everything, which is fine. And there just wasn't time during the day to get everything done. So instead of doing my Q&A yesterday, I'm doing it today. Okay, first questions from Steve C. Question number 1. What do you think of the Seiko's ultrasonic call watches? That's Seiko 8 V as in Victor 36 or Alba V as in Victor 636. Seems these turned out to be an evolutionary dead end, but sometimes having a vibrating, nearly silent alarm on your wrist is better than a ringing bellmatic. I like the cleaner styling of the Albas better than the busier Seiko versions. I don't know the first thing about them, but just think about the fact that most people leave their phones on vibrate now. So I think having vibration, if you're attuned to it, would be useful. Though, of course, there is a thing called phantom vibration syndrome, which apparently is, it's a real thing. Pretty wacky. Question 2. If your daughter wanted to learn to dissect watches, what movement would you give her to start? Stay safe. Well, you want to start with the core, the basic stuff. Just a movement, like a no date, no day, no date. Literally just the train and the main plate and the bridge and a hand wind and maybe a 6602. One of those really early movements, though they can be kind of fiddly to put together, but they would give a good idea. Maybe a more modern pocket watch, actually, because they're bigger. The biggest thing with doing watch work is the size. Whether real or imagined, the scale difference can be really intimidating. Remember the very, very first time I ever looked into a movement, and I took out one of the screws, and it was just a regular bridge screw. They're pretty decently sized, but to me at that time it looked just unbelievably tiny. But the thing is, you put enough magnification on it, and you can things become much easier to deal with. 602. Honestly, actually, I'd probably do with her what I did for myself, which was I started with 7,000 movements, 7,005, 7,006, 7,009, because there's a billion of them, and they're not terribly complicated. And if, especially if you get one that's a serious junker, what's the worst that can happen? Is it still won't run when you're done. But if you have these movements, they're perfectly representational movements, good things to learn on. They're not valuable, they're not rare, and you can get them and you go through them again and again and again until you gain real familiarity with how a watch, how a watch or clock movement works. Also, the big thing too is to do it in I would think in concert with having the original owner's manuals, which by the way, you can find scans of online. I didn't do my wrist check. Well, first a wrist check. I'm wearing last night's watch today. There it is. Isn't it pretty? And it's just the great thing about this, when you see one of these, something like this, and it is the way that it was originally, like it would have been when it was more or less new or nearly new, and you can see what Seiko was really trying to get to. And you have this like beautiful section, not just these giant lugs, but this lower dropped section here that sets them apart, but yet it's all part of a unified whole. And when it's sitting on your wrist, these connections go down like this, and so you really can see that beautiful sort of curved slab look to it. It really is. These bracelets, these watches without the original bracelet are just, you only kind of get an idea of what they're supposed to look like. The other bracelet these came with, like this is an unrestored watch. This is the so-called train track, and the blue ones came on the train track. I'm not really fond of the train track. I don't know why. There's just something about it that I don't dig. I'm not quite sure what it is. I mean, it still does the same thing. It has that drop and it shows that. Sorry, Willow's screaming. Oh my goodness, they're arguing about Legos. Any case, so it still has this thing, but there's something about that train track that doesn't work. Yeah, can you believe this is an unrestored watch? That's totally original. I just really prefer this bracelet, this unnamed bracelet. I don't even know what you'd call it. I just think it works just so well. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? You just never get to see these looking like they did when they were new. I've always liked this style, but you have to have them on the original correct bracelet. It's the only thing that works, in my opinion. Next question, Bob Smith. What does two-part sweep mean? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, so we have here Bob Smith. What does a two-part sweep mean? Okay, firstly, the sweep hand, it's just a term for this seconds hand that's coming around there, the big main chronograph hand that you're seeing. So here, these are the same model, okay? One is the earlier proof, and this is a later no text. They also made them with a resist, like this, but you'll notice this one is a parts watch. It doesn't actually have its sweep. Sweep is missing, but anyway, in case you care, there you go. Look at that. Proof, resist, no text. So the sweep hand on the the vast majority of these old Seiko chronographs are going to have what I call a one-part sweep. Now, it's kind of a misnomer because they're also two-part, but you just can't see it. It's the visual look. See, it's a flat hand with seemingly nothing here. It's just a flat red hand. Well, when Seiko first came out with these, this is also a completely original watch. They had a slightly different setup. It was a thinner hand with this visible button right here. On the real earliest ones, like the 6139 7010 speed timers, they would actually put this in place and they'd seal it with a little lacquer to lock it in place. The reason that they made these two different things, this is the difference between the A movement and the B movement. One of the things that the A movement was an issue is that the hammers for these things, for the chronograph, it's a two-part. Well, maybe I should find one. Hang on a second. Let me find a movement for you. Or, I could just open up this one. That's a B, right? Yeah, that's a B. Is it a B? Oh no, this is a 6139 6009 American. When this was brand new, it had a two-part sweep. But then when they went in for service, Seiko replaced them. Okay. So this is an unrestored watch. Yeah, and this is definitely an A. Okay. Let me find a hammer here. Hang on a second. Get my handy dandy box of parts. Segregated parts. I gotta figure out. I still have to keep working on these. Is that it? No, that's not it. No. It's gonna be the last thing I find. God. It always is, isn't it? It's always the last thing you look at. It's like, and then, come on, operating lever, pawl lever, hammers. There we go. Okay, so hammers. Let's get one out. Okay, so here we go. This is the hammer. Okay, there's the hammer. When you reset, you push, and this thing goes poink. It rotates on this, it's pushed in, and this face contact the minute counter wheel and the chronograph wheel and reset them back to zero. They are these heart wheels. The problem is that over time, if something moves, or if the faces wear unevenly, or if the heart wheels on the wheels move unevenly, all of a sudden you're going to have a gap between one of the two of these things. And if you have a gap there, one of the two is not going to reset properly. Well, in the A movements, you were kind of screwed. You had to go and very carefully take down the surface to get rid of the slack. But that's a pain in the butt. So what Seiko did for the B's, oh gosh, I have to get a B. Is that a B? Yeah, this is a B. Another parts watch. Not a parts watch, but what the heck is that thing? Okay, so so here's your hammer. Okay, so the hammer's there. It's the same piece in both movements. So in the A movements, the shaft that the hammer sits on is just this little thing right here, and it doesn't do anything. This thing just rotates on it. Again, if you've got slack going on, you have to take it off. You have to take everything apart and mill down one of those faces to make it right. You have to test it a bunch. Well, Seiko in the B movement said, well, screw that. And they changed that post from being blank like this to being an eccentric. There's the eccentric. So you can turn this and it will adjust the slack between the faces. It's a huge upgrade. So, but the way that it works then is that when Seiko was first doing these, they knew that you couldn't do a quick adjust on the hammer. So what they did, in fact, is they made it so this two-part sweep is adjustable. Like you can move it, like you stop it and reset it, and then you can actually move the hand. But it's not a great setup. And so then they went and changed that so it's on the eccentric post, and they didn't need the adjustable two-part sweep anymore. So they went to the one-part sweep, which is right here, and that's what they did. So these are not adjustable. They are technically two-part, but they don't really come apart. Anyway, that is the reason for the thing. And these early two-part sweeps, anytime any one of these watches went in for service, it got swapped out. That's just the way that it is, just the way that it happened. So that was probably more of an explanation than you were looking for, but that's the reasoning behind them. Rick, that's an amazing Omega with an unusual movement. The crystal on that thing is bonkers. Ah, the 70s. So if the 6 o'clock subdial is not a minute counter, then what is it? Oh, hey, Rick. Okay. Yeah, isn't it cool? It's not really, I wouldn't call it a 70s design. Remember, 1971, 72, 73, they hadn't come up with what we would think of as being like truly 70s stuff. The big, weird, brutalist, gold-plated square cases with the giant markers and all that kind of wacky 70s stuff. This really was based in the aesthetics of the 60s and sort of the space age stuff. It's more of a 60s watch, like a early, I don't know, it has this kind of contemporary jazz Dave Brubeck kind of thing going on, if you ask me. 1972 in a lot of places might still have been the 60s. I mean, I was born in the late 60s, but because I was the youngest of all the kids, in a lot of ways, I grew up in the shadow of the 50s and the pre-hippie 60s. So that's the world that I grew up in. Oh yeah, and the crystal is bananas, especially because it's got this whole this crazy dome thing going on, like this whole dome on the moon, space age, rockets, all that other kind of crap. Neat. D-Mitz22. I hate you. I had that same freaking Omega, and I have given it to my now ex-son-in-law. I loved that watch, and I actually wore it. Gosh dang. Actually, my one watch-related regret. So what are you doing with the BFK? That's the big, I think it's over here. I'm actually not sure where I put it. That's not it. BFK is the big effing kinetic. It's available. If you're looking for one, let me know. That one works fine. It's in very good condition. It works as it should. My one watch-related non-regret, never buying a kinetic. Well, reach out to me. I can hook you up. Another note, having been born in Australia in the 1950s, still maintaining a home and properties there, but living in the US, I can assure you that if you ever move to Australia and Sabrina will get her cattery wish, you'd be the happier one because there's also a boatload of rabbits there. I do like rabbits. Another person from down under, Chris Wallace, says, move on down, Spencer. We could do with another watch dude and way fewer cats in the bush. Book the tickets. Man, if we had the money, we'd do it. That'd be cool. Though, of course, it being today, the day that the election was decided, we perhaps have less incentive to bolt the country. But still, man, I've always wanted to go. Forbin Colossus. Thanks for reading my question about erratic Seiko 4R and 6R movements. Spencer, you may be the only watch YouTuber figuring this out. That's interesting about the winding pinion wackiness. I'm assuming is a result of Seiko modifying the 7S26 into the 6R 4R movements. Exactly right. I filmed a segment for you. So yeah, so here's the thing with the 7000 series. You started way back at the very beginning with something like this poor old movement, this poor thing, 7005. So you can see it has a very standard thing where it's just a single piece. And it moves together, and you have your, come on, it's supposed to, Anyway, it's supposed to do a quick set on the date just like that, but this is obviously a parts movement and it's not really going, but it's just a single piece, just like that. So then with the 6R15, because all of these are the same basic movement. This is a 7S26C. So the 7As from the 1960s became all the 7000s, like the 7005, 7006, 7009, 7025, that kind of stuff. And then it became like this, 7S26C. There's a lot of commonality between the parts. This one still has only the single piece, which you can see right there. It is. Well, I hope you can see it. It's right in there. That's the quick set there. So what they did, this is a 6R15. This was a bad movement. Well, no, it's a fine movement. It just had issues. And so instead of having just one piece or even two pieces, like say a 6138, it actually has three. Let me get this out of here. Oh, would you stop fighting me? So you can see. So you have one setting wheel, two. This communicates to the winding pinion back over here, so you can do the hand winding. And there you can see them separate. That's for quick setting there. So actually, I'm sorry. This is for time correction, like date quick set. This is for regular time setting, and this is the winding pinion. So those things all work together. But like, this is a really complex thing. You've got this bridge on here and a whole bunch of gears and all this stuff just to be able to run power from this crown. It's a lot of work and a lot of design stuff to just add that functionality. It's, in my opinion, it's needlessly complex, but you know, nobody asked me. Jacques Moffett, I think I got that right, I could be wrong. He had a question about True Pogue, 6139, 6005, True Pogue Gold Dial. What is the price for these? I'm assuming he meant the value. What is the value for these? I have one myself, I got it as a gift, and I would love to know the price. It really depends on a few things. Cosmetic condition and which specific sub-variant you had. Seiko made a bunch of them. They made all kinds of different variants. They made JDM ones, speed timer variants. They made the Aussie Pogue, which was gold with a black ring. They made a number of all gold models, but for different markets that had different text on them. Some were proof, some were resist, some no text. Pogue's own watch, based on photographs of his original watch, was a 6139 6005 resist with, pardon me, I'm trying not to sneeze. 6139 6005 resist with 17J above the SUA symbol on the above the subdial, and it would say only automatic under the Seiko. Pogue bought his at an American Air Force base. Every picture I have seen of his watch, it has all the characteristics of a 6139 6005, which was the only gold dialed variant of that watch sold in the United States. At that time, it just, some other people come out and they say, oh, it's a 6139 6002. The 6139 6002 was sold in, like, Europe and Southeast Asia, Australia and stuff like that. But he bought his in America. Basically, until we can see, until somebody gets a picture of the actual case back, gets some kind of evidence that it's not the North American 6139 6005, it's a 6139 6005. There's no evidence to suggest it's anything else. So that's the first question. What variant do you have? Second question, how's the condition? How's the cosmetic condition? Are the hands bright and clean? Is the lume white? Is it all original? How much patina does the dial have? It's the difference between if you have a beaten up 6139 6002 with its yellow indicator ring faded to white and the lume all stained and the hands are corroded, that's going to be one price. If you have a 6139 6005 resist gold dial with an unfaded indicator ring and pure white lume, and a clean dial with little to no patina, that's another price. We're talking the difference between like $300 and $3,000, like no joke. A real true Pogue in really good condition, of which I've owned like 4, all of which I've sold. They go for real money, believe me. D-Mitts. I never answered your question about the 6 o'clock, the dial at 6 o'clock on this Omega. It is the same thing as on a 6139 6000, 6138 movement. The upper register is a 12-hour counter. That's what this is. It's a long 12-hour counter. Okay. Keith Donnelly. Hi, Spencer and Sabrina. She's upstairs. I tried to talk her into coming downstairs, and she was not interested. She's doing other stuff. She's reading the news. Hope all is well. I enjoy watching videos on abandoned shopping malls and retail history. Okay. Recently came across a repair video on a 1970s dive watch under the name Tradition that was made in Switzerland for Sears, Roebuck & Co. Stellaris was another brand that made watches for Sears. Some of their models use Seiko 3302A movements. Yes, indeed. Heuer also made a watch for Sears known as the Jackie X Easy Rider chronograph after the Formula One driver. Just wondering if you have ever come across any examples of either brand. Yes, absolutely. I had, in fact, I may still have. I had a Stellaris. Now, the Seiko 3302 movement is one of those hybrid electronic movements that you have a gear train and a balance and all this stuff, but it's basically run backwards. You have a battery that provides a pulse to keep the balance going back and forth, and that in turn, the balance drives the train. It's backwards from how a normal watch works. It looked to me like that one was basically brand new. It looked like it had never been worn. It was utterly dead. Never had any water in it, nothing. I simply couldn't get it to run. I actually had one of the Jackie X Easy Rider chronographs in pieces. I had most of it. They're kind of on the cheaper side of stuff. They were, I believe, a pin lever, rather a pin lever escapement. It's a less sort of expensive way to do it. There are some good pin levers, but most of them are not going to be. The coolest thing that I have ever seen that was a Sears Roebuck thing is there was a Tradition chronograph that was made with a, believe it or not, made to look like a 6139 like 6139 6005 blank 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 whatever chronograph with the Pepsi bezel and the blue dial and all that stuff. But instead of using a Seiko movement, it actually used a Valjoux 7750. They're actually really cool, and you never see them. They're neat. I'd love to get my hands on one. Okay. John Boy Valeska. Hello. Spencer, thanks again for the great conversation. Well, I'm glad you think it's great. What's your take on the 2409 and 8306 movements? I did a 2409 and it's running like a dream, but holy cow, there are a lot of parts in there. So what should I take on next? 1967 A306 C-Line 30 joule that wasn't running. Turns out it just needed a click spring. They both seem like really good high-end movements, all metal, not a stitch of plastic inside. Wow, these really seem like quality movements, overbuilt and tough. Though I gotta ask, do you have the technical documents showing the oiling for the A306? I can't find one anywhere. Keep up the good work. Yeah, they're beautiful movements. They're beautiful. The A305, A306, A345, A346. They're really nice movements. They're low because they have a reversing wheel style automatic winding, which reduces the stack height. They're beautifully made. They're fully jeweled. They're hand winders. They're really great movements. But Seiko, when they went through the late 60s in the Daini and Suez split, those movements were moved to Orient or Citizen, one of the two, I don't remember. But talking about oiling, I made a segment for you. Yeah, I tell you, those the A305, A306, A346, that kind of stuff, they're really magnificent. The way Seiko does their stuff is they have base models, basically. You have the core model that an entire movement family is based on. And then what they do is they have a service for that, service directions for that, and you simply extrapolate that out to the other movements. So A305C, so 5 is date only, but the difference between date and day date is minor. So this is the original servicing guide, and it sort of goes in an overview about the movements. It tells you all about it, tells you all your spacing. It has an explosions about all the things. The great thing about the servicing guides is it has basically a reversible disassembly and assembly, so you can follow along all the way to take it apart, and then you follow along all the way in reverse to put it back together. This one doesn't appear to have the colored guide for lubricate. Well, this is the 8800. You can see some, but that's a different beast entirely. But this will tell you exactly what to lubricate and where. Like this, lubricate setting wheel lever complete, and it shows you the setting wheel lever. So that's the way to do it. It's not quite as cool as some of the other colored ones, but it's like this. It tells you right here, date jumper, you're going to want to put a little bit of oil on there. You want to put a little bit of oil on there, that kind of thing. It shows you what's going on. Again, I always recommend, if you can find the Seiko servicing guides, it contains all the answers. So, I mean, if you can't find the manual, let me know. I guess I could take pictures. I could take pictures of that A305 lubrication thing, and then you'd have it. Rock the Cat Box. Man, I love that name. Could you use, talking about Re-looming 6105 dials with the big markers and the deep lume wells, could you use a micro pipette to administer a precise volume of lume paint into the hollow hour markers, or would it not necessarily disperse evenly? A lot of this comes down to the thickness of the mix, and I make all of my lume basically as I need it. So stupidly, what that means is that every single batch of my lume is slightly different. Like I haven't made up like a gallon jug of Seiko grade lume. It doesn't exist. Every time I go, I start from scratch, and I made a thing for you. Okay. Let's do that. So doing the fill on these dials is really hard, because lume has a tendency, when you mix up lume, it has a tendency to shrink. As the volatile elements go away, the volume of the mass goes down. That is the case until unless you get it thick enough, gooey enough that it will stay put. But if it's gooey enough and thick enough to stay put, it becomes hard to fill. And then you don't get, I mean, it's hard to see. This is an original dial, okay? I don't know if you can really tell. Seiko generally did these where it was a nice even fill and it filled up to just below the edge. And that's real typical. It's extremely hard for me to replicate. I mean, I've been relooming these dials for years and I don't know. I just don't think there's a real good way to do it. This was an experiment and that's one I did a long time ago and it looks okay, but you know, other ones, whenever I would get in a parts dial that was really badly damaged, I would experiment with it. It's not bad. This one had massive water damage. All the marks are gone. I don't know. Whatever. This is another one. Did I reloom this one? Yay. Ooh, this was another reloomed one. Yeah, it's just tough because if you put in the wrong mix and it's too thin, it all of a sudden it'll hollow out in the middle. You'll get these, gosh darn it, you'll get these big dips in the middle and it looks like ass. And yeah, you can go and fill them again, but then it doesn't fill smoothly. And I haven't honestly, now that I've come up with my Lume, you know, I wouldn't really want to relume a dial anymore. Like something like this. You know, people in the old days would relume this. Now, my Lume, I can clear most of that out. I haven't bothered with this set. That hasn't come to me to do, but I could. And then you don't want to relume. It's just, I could be so much better at doing this, and until I'm better, I try not to think about it. You know, so it's tough. I wish that we could move past the era of relooming any of these dials, and I feel badly about the dials that I already have reloomed, especially now that I have my Lume that I created. PDMG. Hi Spencer, I'm finding your restoration videos informative, so thank you for putting them up. You're very welcome. I have an H357. This is H is hybrid, so you have a analog section and a quartz section. H357. It looks a lot like the Arnie, but it's a Dynie thing, not a Sua. I have an H357 which is impossible to set using the crown because the digital digits suddenly advance multiple minutes or even hours with the smallest turn. I hear or feel some clicks from the crown, but not on every turn. It's the same behavior in the opposite direction. The rest of the module works fine. The analog hands set okay, and it keeps good time. So I'm thinking this might be a mechanical issue with how the crown makes contact with the lyre-shaped piece you point out in the video. Would this be a fairly easy fix for a careful novice? Here's the thing: H357 is a completely different movement. It more or less does the same thing, but it's a different technology, different design. The best thing to do, I like to think that anybody can do anything. If you put your mind to it and do your research and take your time, you can get it done. The first thing to do is to go to Google and put in Seiko H357.pdf. Look for that. And what it'll do is it should come up with a link for you that it'll either bring up the parts list, which is not bad to have, but oftentimes it'll have the technical guide, which is the servicing guide, and it'll tell you all the things to go through. It'll break down all the sections of, you know, what to test and how to make things go and troubleshooting. So again, go to Google or whatever your search engine is, DuckDuckGo, and put in Seiko H357.pdf. That dude better, sorry, some dude's skateboarding. It's gonna snow. You better get his skateboarding in now before that happens. Joseph Stewart. Well, Spencer, if you and the family do end up moving down here to Australia and buying a cattery, Sabrina wants one, then allow me the first to buy you a beer. Gladly, I'd love to. My question for the week is on your cleaning process for Seiko hands. My 7548 is currently in getting an overhaul. The hands had some damage that I've seen on watches that you've successfully cleaned and got back to looking fantastic. Sometimes I can do it. My watchmaker has told me that it can't be done. It can. I've told him to subscribe to your videos. He rolled his eyes. I don't really talk about cleaning the hands a whole lot. All the best to you guys from Australia. This isn't really informative, but I made a little video segment for you. So your watch guy down there in Australia rolled his eyes at the idea of cleaning these hands. So when you get water inside a Seiko, because the Lume is salt-based, so it'll tend to, water gets in and it'll sort of activate the salt and it'll eat away at the hands and you get all this stuff. Really bad cases, the whole tops of the hands will just turn black. It's gnarly. It's really, really bad. Just an example of how much damage water can do. This is the same model watch. Same exact model watch. This is what sun and heat, but especially moisture, will do. This is what it looked like when it was closer to new. Can you believe it? Now, it's possible when you have hands that are like this to get them cleaner. Not all the time, but it can be done. I don't know how to explain this in any way that would make sense to him and wouldn't necessarily lead him or you or anyone down the wrong path. How could I explain this? You can with a couple different kinds of things. Like I found, for example, that my ultrasonic, my big ultrasonic for watch movements, will the Lume itself is often strong enough. It's more than strong enough to go through an ultrasonic setting, which you wouldn't think, but I did some tests a long time ago and it worked. And a lot of times that would actually clean up the metal beautifully. It depends on if I'm re-looming them. Another thing that works too is something like brasso, but not with an abrasive, literally just the liquid, to try to work on the corrosion. But that will generally destroy the Lume, and it's also, I don't know, it's tough to do. I mean, your guy is right for rolling his eyes, because I think a lot of watch dudes don't want to have to fiddle with this stuff. They just want to put on a new set of hands and get on with it. Whereas my thing is about preserving the originals like this. So it can be done. It depends. It depends how bad the corrosion is. I've seen it sometimes where the corrosion is just sitting on top of the metal and you run things through and it comes back and the Lume might still be stained, but the metal is just as bright and clean as anything. It depends. There's a few different ways to do it. Basically, all I do all the time is experiment to try to improve these things. And I got to admit, sometimes even I don't quite remember how I achieved a result. I don't know. That's probably a useless segment. This is another question about the true Pogue, 6139 6005. Erba Lumpkin. Hope I got that right. You never clearly show the back of the watch. Is it really a 6139 6005? Do these watches all have the Spanish English language day denomination? Okay, so I've kind of already gone over this, so I put these questions together in the wrong order. Every bit of evidence we have is that Pogue's watch was a 6139 6005. It's a all gold version with the American dial. It has the 6005 dial, period. It does. And he bought it in the United States. All the evidence we have say that it's a 6139 6005. There isn't any evidence anywhere that indicates that it's anything except that, period. Now, typically, I can think of only a couple exceptions. Every 6139 6005, be them, and they were only made in resistant no text. Every single one I've ever seen, except for a couple exceptions, had Spanish English day wheels. A couple that I remember had French English, but the vast majority are Spanish English. That's what I expect to see. So yeah. Okay, Aaron Petterini. Hello, Spencer, and possibly Sabrina. I wish I tried. Spencer, I noticed today that my 1974 6139 that never had been serviced before I got it has blue colored Lume. You mean like it glows blue? From what I understand, which isn't much, give yourself credit. From what I understand, which isn't much, Lume was green back in the day. It looks original and matches with the Lume on the hands. In your opinion, is the Lume original? The model is 6015, if that helps. Seiko never used blue Lume back then. You can get Lume that has the right grain size and the right daytime color, but glows different colors. I mean, you can. There are Lume companies, and they sell all kinds of different colors. Why they never made it like a red or an orange Lume? So I would say then, if it looks original, somebody did a good looming job with modern looms. Seiko only ever had green Lume, as far as I know. Also, don't read or answer if you don't want to. Here I'm reading it. I just bought a Singapore SKX 173 with a 7S26A movement with a slightly blued bezel. Do you have any opinion on this particular model? My understanding is that this model is slightly on the rare side. Is it true, or did I buy some fake internet hype? Thanks for everything you do. Oh, well, everything I do is fun. The insert. Everything depends on the fine details. Does it have a little bevel on the inside of the insert? Is the pip correct? Find pictures of like a brand new SKX, brand new, and get the best picture you can of the pip, the insert, and compare it to yours. Also look at the finish. The finish should not be like on the insert, like the black and the silver should not be perfectly smooth and clean and clear. It should have sort of an eggshell finish to it. It really, really should. It's almost like a metallic flake in the silver. When you compare a real insert to the aftermarkets, they're clearly different. Seiko's that eggshell finish and the bright silver metallic of the numbers stands out. But it's, for me, I always look at the pip. The pip will tell you what's going on, because they never get the pip right. It's supposed to be this, relatively speaking, thick plastic pip that is loomed from the underside. It's not domed, and it will be recessed slightly. I don't know. Check it out. Gregory Pincelli. I think with Italian, it's one C is a isn't it Pincelli? I don't remember. I'm not the Italian one. My wife is. Mr. Klein, fantastic videos. Well, thank you. I watched several now. How can I reach you for some potential Seiko projects? I'm not taking any work currently. I spent all of 2017 and 2018 saying yes to everybody who was writing me, and people were writing me all the time. I was getting 10 plus new jobs a week, no joke. In February 2018, I got like 37 jobs or more. I haven't taken a new job since January of 2019. I'm still running on those jobs. I have just about 20 left. A lot of the jobs I have now are multi-watch jobs. They take much longer. And so currently I'm not taking work. We still get job inquiries literally almost every day. I would say I can't think of a day when I haven't gotten a new job inquiry somewhere on Instagram or email or Facebook or on the Seiko subreddit, which is mine, or the Japanese watcher subreddit, which is mine. So I'm not taking any new work because I'm overloaded. When I do start taking work again, there's no way I can take everybody's jobs. That's just, I can't do it. I'd be in a terrible mess again. So I am going to estimate when that time comes how many jobs I think I can do in the coming period, be it a month or whatever, and I will put up for purchase slots on the website. You prepay basically for a slot. There's a limited number of them. You make your non-refundable deposit, and then once you have that, confirmed with you, you send me your watch. It goes into a short line, and then I grind those out during the course of a month. And that's the way that I do it. It's the only way I can think of to be fair. That, and I'll announce that, say on a Friday, hey, Monday morning, my time, I'm going to be putting up 10 slots. Whoever gets there first gets there. 1 slot per person, no scalping. Okay, Slapshot Regatta, asking about the 7A Quartz chronographs. Does Seiko still service these watches and movements? Mm-mm. Seiko services almost nothing of their old stuff. Heck, they mostly don't even service their new stuff. They would rather, it's a big investment to have, the parts and the skilled labor to be able to repair these things, and it's not remunerative, and so they don't do it. But 7As, in my opinion, are one of the greatest, overall, one of the greatest quartz movements ever made, in my opinion. Unless your 7A has had a massive battery leak or has been fully flooded with water, it can be repaired. Those things they're all metal. They have 15 joules. They will never wear out. The only thing possible for them that I've ever seen wear out is sometimes their cannon pinion setup can wear, but even that's fairly rare. They're hell on wheels to service correctly. It takes a lot of time and skill to do it correctly, but it absolutely can be done. They're awesome. Keith Donnelly. Ooh. He's asking about this. That bracelet was the icing on the cake. I'm currently hunting for a bracelet myself. Even in used condition, they are getting harder to find. Thanks for another enjoyable video. I just kicked myself. A few months recently, like this year, a few months back, somebody must have found a batch of these bracelets, new old stock. And they were actually available on eBay, and they weren't terribly expensive. And I kicked myself. I wish I bought a couple more because I went and looked, and there's only one on eBay now, and it's from Japan. It's one of these bracelets, but it's the one for the JDM speed timer. So it has, inside the fold and the clasp, it has the sticker label in kanji for the resizing instructions. It's JDM only, and it has the speed timer clasp. So it's for the original Bruce Lee. The guy wants $500 or best offer. It's a lot of money. They're hard to find. I wish I'd bought more when I came up with these. They're just not really replaceable. And that's it, folks. Dawn of a new era. Now that the election's been decided, but that's the end of that. I thank you for watching. Have a happy Saturday. Now I'm going to go upstairs and we're going to have cheese and crackers and watch the second episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Okay, bye.